There is an increase of violent groups in the Sahel, and under these situations, these countries need help. Burkina Faso has overcome these obstacles on its own, without the assistance of the West. But now more than ever, assistance from other African countries and outside allies is crucial. In this regard, Russia appears to be a fitting ally. Burkina Faso has appreciated Russia's support because of its involvement, which is marked by mutual interests as opposed to self-interest. But what long-term effects might Russia's engagement have? Let's investigate. With Burkina Faso at the center of recent crucial developments, the Sahel area of Western Africa is fast turning into a hotbed for geopolitical and security concerns. This region, which stretches from Senegal in the west to Sudan in the east, has long been beset by a number of problems, such as poverty, ethnic strife, and desertification. But the main cause of the current problem is an increase in terrorist activity that has caused instability in many of the region's countries. Particularly Burkina Faso is dealing with an unparalleled surge of violent assaults, and Burkina Faso's efforts to stop them have recently resulted in more of them. Burkina Faso attacks violent organizations to instill terror among the local population. The strategic significance of the Sahel cannot be emphasized in this case. It acts as a buffer between the more unstable parts of sub-Saharan Africa and the more stable parts of North Africa. As a result, any instability in the Sahel could spread and impact nearby areas as well as other areas. The escalation of insurgency and Burkina Faso's reaction afterwards underscore how dire the situation is. The engagement of foreign military advisors, especially those from Russia, represents a dramatic change in the nation's strategy for addressing these difficulties as it attempts to navigate these choppy waters. This event reflects broader geopolitical factors at work in the region and emphasizes the seriousness of the security risks Burkina Faso faces. Understanding the many players involved and their motivations is crucial given the complexity and diversity of the Sahelian problem. For example, the current war takes on a new dimension due to the presence of Russian military instructors in Burkina Faso, which raises concerns about the wider consequences for regional stability and international relations. What effect, then, would Russia's intervention have? Before we talk about the impact of Russia's participation in the Sahel region, we need to discuss why Burkina Faso required Russia in the first place. As we've already stated, Burkina Faso finds itself in a precarious situation right now due to an unsettling increase in armed attacks that is threatening to turn the country into a security emergency. The main causes of the increase in violence are several militant groups, including aggressive organizations with multiple affiliations. These organizations have been taking advantage of the weaknesses in the nation. Numerous attacks by these groups on military and civilian targets have resulted in deaths, extensive displacement, and an overall climate of dread and uncertainty. On the photos below, hordes of fighters, some seated on motorbikes, some on trucks, are seen making their way into the town of Djibo in northern Burkina Faso. These photos, which were seen on national television, were published by the National Armed Forces of the country in West Africa. They purportedly showed jihadists attacking an army detachment in Djibo, and the army retaliating. Security sources claim that losses were incurred by both parties. According to the nation's intelligence service, the military forces destroyed over 400 terrorists during their counteroffensive against about 3,000 criminals who attempted to take control of the town of Djibo. The government of Burkina Faso has requested outside support to strengthen its counterinsurgency operations in reaction to the deteriorating security conditions. However, this is where Russia enters the picture. There have been recent rumors indicating that Russian military instructors have arrived in Burkina Faso. It is thought that these instructors are a part of a larger plan to improve the capacity of the nation's armed forces to combat militants. These foreign military advisors represent a dramatic change in the government's strategy, demonstrating its desperation and the urgent need for workable answers to stop the violence that is becoming more and more prevalent. The insurgency has had a disastrous effect on Burkina Faso. Everyday life has been interrupted by the ongoing danger of assaults, which has led thousands of people to escape their homes in search of safety in other locations. The already overburdened humanitarian resources are under tremendous strain from this refugee crisis, resulting in an urgent need for help and assistance from abroad. Furthermore, the instability caused by the conflict has discouraged investment and impeded development efforts, worsening the nation's poverty and underdevelopment. As a result, the economic effects of the conflict are significant. The necessity of Russian military instructors' engagement increases as the scenario develops. The way the country's fight for peace and stability develops in the future will be greatly influenced by their involvement in the conflict, as well as the government's larger counterinsurgency plan. There has been no official confirmation from the Burkinabe administration, despite the fact that there have been numerous stories of Russian military instructors coming in Burkina Faso. The precise nature and degree of foreign engagement in the nation's counterinsurgency activities have been the subject of much conjecture and confusion due to this lack of transparency. However, government-affiliated sources have offered vital insights into these events, implying the larger plan to counter the growing rebellion includes the deployment of Russian military advisors. But why is there a dearth of formal confirmation? Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's proceed. First, given the possible backlash from both domestic and foreign interests, the administration may be hesitant to publicly acknowledge foreign military aid. A contentious option considering the geopolitical concerns surrounding Russia's involvement in numerous conflicts abroad might be the presence of Russian military instructors. Furthermore, admitting to receiving military assistance from abroad may indicate a degree of reliance that the government is hesitant to make public. Information from sources close to the government paints a better picture of the situation despite the lack of official confirmation. According to these sources, the pressing necessity to handle the rapidly deteriorating security picture was the driving force behind the decision to bring in Russian military instructors. Since the Burkinabe military forces have previously had difficulty quelling the insurgency, it is believed that the knowledge and experience of Russian instructors will be essential to improving their operational capacities. Additionally, according to reports, Russian military advisors were involved. This fits with a larger trend of Russian influence growing throughout Africa. Russia has been increasing its influence on the continent in recent years by a number of strategies, such as diplomatic outreach, economic initiatives, and military support. It is possible to see the entrance of Russian instructors in Burkina Faso as a component of this broader plan, which reflects Russia's desire to increase its influence in the area. What specifics of Russia's involvement are there? The specifics about the presence of Russian military instructors in Burkina Faso are noteworthy and fascinating, providing insight into the larger dynamics at work in the area. Various accounts claim that Russian military instructors have entered Burkina Faso twice by plane rotations from neighboring Mali. This logistics effort demonstrates how well-planned and coordinated the deployment of these foreign advisors was. To support the counterinsurgency effort, Russian instructors are a term frequently used to characterize former combatants from the Wagner mercenary group in Russia. This private military firm, well known for its participation in numerous international conflicts, is well known for offering operational support, strategic counsel, and combat training to nations that face security issues. These teachers' purposeful attempt to capitalize on their knowledge and experience in insurgent operations is indicated by their presence in Burkina Faso. It is anticipated that these instructors will give Burkinabe forces specific training with an emphasis on tactics, methods, and procedures necessary to counter insurgency and guerrilla warfare, Moreover, the deployment's logistics component emphasizes the conflict's broad scope. The fact that these teachers were sent in by air from Mali speaks to the degree of coordination and collaboration that exists between the two nations. It also highlights the insurgency's larger regional ramifications in the Sahel, where militant organizations transcend country boundaries and borders are brittle. Russian instructors are probably involved in operational support and strategic planning in addition to teaching. One way they could be involved is by providing advice on counterinsurgency campaigns, directing intelligence operations and supporting operations on the ground during vital missions. The goal of this comprehensive assistance is to increase Burkina Faso's total military capability and enhance its capacity to successfully counter the insurgent threat. But first, we must discuss the Russian Wagner Group before moving on to discuss the implications of this generally. The Wagner mercenary group is said to have previously employed the Russian military instructors who are presently stationed in Burkina Faso, as we have already covered. A private military company having a reputation for its involvement in many worldwide conflicts. The Wagner Group has been connected to a number of contentious operations, frequently working against Western interests and in support of Russian geopolitical objectives. It is important to comprehend these instructors' pasts in order to fully appreciate their current position in Burkina Faso. Since its founding in 2014, Wagner Group has taken part in hostilities in many African nations, Syria, Ukraine, and Libya. The group is well known for its covert activities, which frequently give the Russian government some degree of plausible deniability while furthering its geopolitical objectives overseas. The combatants in Wagner are mostly ex-military people who bring a plethora of fighting experience and specialized skills to the table. The Wagner Group has made a significant impact on Africa. They have served in a variety of roles, such as directly conducting combat operations, training local armed forces, and protecting public officials. Their presence in nations such as Sudan and the Central African Republic has been characterized by a combination of military and economic agendas that frequently coincide with Russia's overarching goals of consolidating its power on the continent. Following major internal group changes, the decision was made to send former Wagner fighters to Burkina Faso. After its head, Yevgeny Prigozhin, perished in an aircraft accident in August of last year, Wagner experienced a restructure. The organization was renamed the Africa Corps by the Russian Defense Ministry. This rebranding went beyond appearances. It signified a change in strategy intended to formalize and increase Russia's military presence in Africa. The paramilitary has recently been reorganized under the Africa Corps, a new organization. Following the August 2018 plane crash death of Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of Wagner Group, the Russian Defense Ministry undertook this rebranding. Due to improved relations between the military regimes and Moscow, the Africa Corps of Russia has been able to establish themselves in West Africa. Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, three neighboring military-ruled governments, have inked a security deal with Russia. The pact now requires all of the countries to support one another in the event of an external attack or uprising. A more formal and disciplined approach to their operations is indicated by their restructuring into the Africa Corps. This new institution continues to depend on the expertise and experience of former Wagner agents, but functions under a structure that corresponds more closely with Russia's defense strategy. This change is evident in their operation in Burkina Faso, which takes a more coordinated and methodical approach to delivering military support in the area. But why is Russia helping? Russia has both geopolitical goals and strategic objectives to justify its participation in Burkina Faso and wider Africa. Although Burkina Faso clearly needs outside support to quell its insurgency, comprehending Russia's willingness to offer this support necessitates a more thorough examination of the reasons behind Moscow's actions. First off, Russia's present involvement in Africa is greatly influenced by its historical ties to the continent. The Soviet Union backed several African liberation movements, and recently independent republics during the Cold War. This history of unity has endured, encouraging a spirit of cooperation and respect for one another. Russia is currently attempting to revive these ties by providing military assistance, commercial alliances, and diplomatic backing. This tradition may be observed in the entrance of Russian military instructors in Burkina Faso, which is intended to assist African countries in strengthening their ability to deal with security issues on their own. Furthermore, Russia's engagement in Africa stems from a sincere desire to support the stability and advancement of the continent. Russia helps African nations like Burkina Faso bolster their security capabilities by offering military assistance and training, which promote regional stability. Russia benefits from this stability because it creates a more predictable and secure atmosphere for possible collaborations and economic investments. The benefits of this engagement for both parties highlight Russia's dedication to a cooperative strategy as opposed to one centered just on self-interest. Second, Russia's activities in Africa are a component of a larger plan to offset the impact of the West on the continent. The Occident, for a considerable amount of time, especially former colonial countries like France and the United Kingdom, political interventions, military collaboration, and financial assistance are common ways in which this influence is demonstrated. But many African nations are becoming more and more cautious about this engagement because they see it as neo-colonialism that puts Western interests before of local needs. By providing assistance without the conditions frequently associated with Western aid, Russia positions itself as a challenger to Western hegemony. African countries looking to lessen their reliance on Western powers and broaden their foreign alliances will find this strategy appealing. Russia hopes to acquire a reputation as a trustworthy ally by filling the void left by the decline of Western power and changing the geopolitical environment in Africa. Russia's rivalry with Western nations on the international scene also influences its approach. Russia may demonstrate its position in a region of increasing strategic importance and counter Western goals by increasing its influence in Africa. By upending Western hegemony and strengthening Russia's position internationally, this geopolitical move fosters a more multipolar global order. Thirdly, Russia views Africa differently than the West does, especially when it comes to exploitation. Western nations have historically come under fire for taking advantage of Africa's labor and resources, frequently causing civil unrest and environmental harm in the process. Many people are skeptical of and hostile toward Western initiatives as a result of this history of exploitation. Russia, on the other hand, places a strong emphasis on a partnership model built on respect and mutual gain. Russian officials frequently emphasize their non-colonial heritage and portray their involvement as free from the Western-style exploitation. Many African leaders and populations who are eager to see their countries grow without succumbing to new kinds of exploitation and reliance find resonance in this story. Russia's appeal is further enhanced by its commitment to upholding the sovereignty of African nations. Russian assistance and collaboration are frequently presented as respecting the recipient nation's autonomy and decision-making processes, in contrast to some Western interventions that come with political and economic stipulations. This strategy increases mutual respect and trust, which makes African countries more open to Russian aid. Furthermore, Russia's emphasis on military and security assistance rather than just economic exploitation fits perfectly with Burkina Faso and other countries' pressing demands. Russia is viewed as a practical and helpful partner, rather than an opportunistic exploiter by these countries because of the assistance it provides in addressing their security concerns. Thus, what would happen if Russia were given the authority to affect a region like the Sahel? Will Africa gain from it? If so, what advantages exist? A major position for Russia in the Sahel, which includes Burkina Faso, has consequences for the stability and development of Africa as well as possible advantages. The presence of Russia provides a substitute for conventional Western relationships for African countries, notably those in the Sahel. By reducing reliance on a single geopolitical player, this diversification encourages rivalry amongst global allies. Consequently, African nations might be able to secure more advantageous conditions for their military and economic collaboration, which could result in better infrastructure, increased technological development, and economic expansion. The Sahelian states beset by terrorism and insurgencies might greatly benefit from Russia's experience in military weapons and training. Through the provision of cutting-edge military technology, strategic counsel, and training to regional forces, Russia can augment their capacity to successfully counter threats. This assistance may result in more security, less violence, and more stability, which would make the atmosphere safer for societal advancement and economic growth. Russia frequently highlights respect for African nations' sovereignty and non-interference. Contrasts with previous behavior by Western powers. African leaders and people who are apprehensive about outside interventions because they see them as exploitative or driven by political motives find resonance in this strategy. Russia's involvement may support improved diplomatic relations, regional cooperation, and Sahelian conflict resolution initiatives by placing a high priority on respect and cooperation. Also, Russian investments in infrastructure projects, resource development, and energy sectors could encourage Sahelian nations' economies to thrive. Improved trade, job possibilities, and local community living standards could all be facilitated by increased connectivity via transportation and energy infrastructure. These financial advantages may lower poverty rates and promote regional socio-economic growth over the long run. Furthermore, Russia's influence in the Sahel provides a balance to the geopolitical supremacy of the West in Africa. By encouraging Western countries to enhance their cooperation and aid terms, this competition can help African countries by increasing the effectiveness of their aid and development assistance. Furthermore, by enabling African countries to negotiate from a position of strength, a multipolar engagement framework may guarantee that international alliances serve their long-term development objectives, as well as their national interests. Thus, all of the military assistance that Russia has given is likewise favorable. It is in Africa's best interests. Do you think Russia is a good partner to Africa? Does Russia's backing benefit Africa? Or would it also lead to exploitation? Will these relationships be free from self-interest? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.